OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. It is 7:40 on this Tuesday morning. It is time for the Gillette Performance Rankings.
You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's Performance Rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
Every week on OTB AM, we give you the chance to win a Gillette starter pack here on our performance rankings. All you have to do is send us in your suggestions for the good, the bad and the grand, and we'll pick a winner before 9:30. So many contenders, Shane, this morning for all the different spots. Let's have a look at our sidebar to see who is in the red first off this morning. And I think we're going to start this morning with Leinster football. You are putting the Leinster Football Championship into the red, despite the fact that the final was decided by single figures on Sunday, Shane. What's going on here?
It's a joke, Owen. It is a joke, the Leinster Senior Football Championship. Like, I went, as you said, to Croke Park on Saturday afternoon to watch the Ulster football final, with hope in my heart that my own County Monaghan could win it. They didn't, but that's the beautiful thing about Ulster football, is that you go to these games not knowing the outcome. Now, anyone who went to Croke Park the following day, 24 hours later on Sunday, knew the outcome of the game before they went. And it was just... You see, like Kildare fans, of course, they go to the game with that little sinew of hope. But reality is, this Dublin team are just far too dominant. Like, I had almost forgotten how many Leinsters in a row until I saw the push notifications coming in after the game on Sunday. 11 Leinster titles in a row is joke stuff. Like, this cannot be happening, Owen. And to see it, the only thing that's giving me a saving grace here is the fact that Meath are the minor Leinster champions and Offaly are the under-20 Leinster champions. So there is a little bit of hope left that maybe what's coming through the ranks and the underage teams coming through, Dublin don't have the dominance that they do at senior level. That is the only thing I'm clinging on to here. But
what about the margins of victory, Shane? Is that not another reason to give you hope? Are we not saying that Dublin maybe have closed the gap themselves and have come back to the pack a little bit more? Like 3 games in a row in the Leinster Championship where they've won by only single digits. When was the last time that happened? Like, it sounds to me this morning that you're very much in the camp that Dublin have been playing it cool and have not been trying at all.
Like, of course they've been trying. It's championship football, but at the same time, like an 8-point win in a provincial final in any year is a big win. And it's just the manner of it as well, because Kildare get the goal and you're thinking, oh, we could make a game out of this here. And then the big players step up. Cormac Costello, Brian Howard, all of these guys all of a sudden, Kieran Kilkenny, do what they usually do and they just nip it in the bud. They tip over scores at just the right time to kill any margin of hope. And that's the way Dublin games have gone. Like, we all kind of got a little bit excited after the Wexford game at the start of the year. And I think the Wexford players going to the first water break, led by a point or two maybe, and they got a standing ovation from the Wexford support. But that's just little tiny bits of hope that we cling on to. This Dublin team, as I said, the right moments in the game, they just kill it off. And if we're gonna try and hold on to things like single-digit victories as beacons of hope for the Leinster Championship, then we're really in trouble, because an 8 or 9 point win is still an absolute trouncing in any other province. If Galway beat Mayo, or if Mayo beat Galway by a point, it's a trouncing. If Monaghan beat Tyrone, or Tyrone beat Monaghan by 8 or 9 points, it's a trouncing. And it should not be considered anything else for Dublin to beat Kildare or whoever it might be, or Meath or Wexford, by anything less than single digits. It's still a trouncing, Owen, and the Leinster Championship's in trouble.
But what would the 2017 Dublin team, for example, or the 2018 or 19 Dublin team have done in the last 3 games, do we think?
Like, yes, they probably would have won by a bigger margin. But you have to remember, Dublin have lost some big players. Stephen Cluxton's wasn't the man lifting the Leinster trophy for the first time in a long time for Dublin, and Johnny Cooper got the honours. But they are missing some players. It's a team in transition as well. There's no longer Jim Gavin at the helm. We have Desi Farrell in there now. It's going to take a little bit of time for Desi Farrell to stamp his authority in this Dublin team. But if they're winning Leinster titles by 8 points, I mean, he's not doing badly. And there were so many years where Dublin fans would have absolutely dreamed of Leinster titles as easily as they can win them now. But like, we'll talk to Anthony Miles a little bit later on. When he was starting off his Meath career, if you told him that there would be a point between 2011 and 2021 where Dublin would win 11 Leinster titles in a row, he'd have laughed at you. Not a chance. Not a hope.
I wouldn't like to hear your appraisal of the Munster Championship, because am I right? It was 8-6-8 were the 3 winning margins, which is an accumulation of 22 points, and Kerry won the Munster final by 22 points. So are we like, is Leinster football even the worst football championship?
Yes, it is the worst football championship. Like Munster, yeah, of course. This year the Munster Championship was just dominated by an excellent Kerry team, but it's year after year after year in Leinster. Like last year, at least we had the surprise of Cork beating Kerry and then Tip beating Cork, and there was a little element of hope that there could be surprise results. Any team heading into the Ulster Championship this year, I could have made a case for. Like I could have even made a case for Antrim as a surprise. Like Division 4, promoted to Division 3, Enda McGinley doing good things with them. Armagh Monaghan was a toss-up. Tyrone Donegal was a toss-up. You had Derry doing serious things as well and could have beaten Donegal. All of the games were just up in the air. And then you have, even at underage level, Downs under-20s coming through with power. Derry at underage level are really strong. Cavan traditionally are as well. Like the only provinces keeping my interest alive at provincial stage in the football is Connacht and Ulster. And even in Connacht, you've only really got 3 teams that can probably win it in Roscommon, Mayo and Galway. But no, the Leinster Championship, I don't know what the solution is. Maybe Anthony Moyles might have the answers for us a little bit later, but like I still enjoy the provincial championships, probably because of Ulster keeping the interest there for me as a proud Monaghan man. But no, the Leinster Championship is just a joke. But look, that the hope, as I said, Meath winning the minor and Offaly winning the under-20s, at least that gives us something to clutch onto.
I don't know. I think there are green shoots of hope. I don't think that the provincial system is beyond saving at this point, and I do agree with you that it's probably going to be changed at the end of this year anyway. But I just think that if you wanted to pick one year to watch Leinster football out of the last 10 years, this is probably the most compelling. I know it doesn't say much at all for the state of the Leinster Championship, and you can say that, but it's been better than anything I can remember over the last 5 or 6 years, because Dublin have just been off it a little bit. And yes, I accept that there is a massive Dublin kick coming at some point, and some team are going to fall victim to that in very, very brutal fashion. It could be Mayo, it could be Tyrone or Kerry. Who knows when it's going to happen, and it probably will happen. But the alternative view to that is that the previous iterations of Dublin, the peak Jim Gavin Dublin team, would never have allowed these games to be a little bit questionable early in the second half, and that's what all those games have been. I know the reality is that nobody had any questions over the result, because this is Dublin and those teams are Wexford, Meath and Kildare, and we know their form. But if you're an alien coming to watch those games, those 3 games, they're up for decision early in the second half. None of Dublin's Leinster games over the last 5 or 6 years were up for decision early in the second half. They were all dead, absolutely gone early in the first half. So something has changed, and I don't know, can any inter-county team actually wake up one day and say, listen, we are going to change something, and the change we are going to make is being less dominant. I just don't see how that benefits anybody whatsoever. And yes, I accept, again, just to reiterate, that Dublin will kick on at some point, but I'm very much in the camp at the moment that something is just not 100% right. Like, Dean Rock isn't deliberately getting the ball on the right flank and ballooning the ball straight up into the air. Like, there are certain moments where, like, that's going over the black spot in previous years. Conor O'Callaghan isn't deliberately operating on the fringes of the team. Like, something is not right. The things that they're doing, they are not doing deliberately. And I don't think the whole third gear element, which, let's face it, they're in, is all down to Dublin creating some sort of master plan. I think that there are enough red flags that would ensure that these last 2 games for them in this year's championship will at least lead to 2 real tests, and I think Mayo will give them a real test in the All-Ireland semi-final. What I would say then, to almost counteract that point, is look at the sort of the reasonable things that are going to happen over the next little while, and the kind of John Small coming back into the team and being ahead of schedule with his return to fitness is a massive fill-up for Dublin. Owen Merchant, the exact same thing. It's not just because of what they offer in the backs, but it will allow the likes of Brian Howard and James McCarthy to play further forward. Maybe Brian Howard joins Brian Fenton in midfield and James McCarthy resumes at centre back. That for me just transforms how Dublin look, and all of a sudden that starting 15 looks the best starting 15 in Ireland. But you have to say, Shane, that when you go through that bench, it is definitely not as strong as it was in previous years. And there is a strong case to be made that Kerry actually have a better 26 than Dublin do at this point.
Oh, you've said it, Owen. You've said it. As a Kerry man, you finally said it. I mean, this is the thing, and you said it yourself there. Dublin are in third gear. Like, no other county Like Tyrone couldn't have won the Ulster Championship in third gear. Mayo couldn't have won the Connacht Championship probably in third gear. Like the fact that they can win a province in, as you said, third gear is the problem here. And look, GAA fans, it's the hope that kills you. And Mayo fans are probably the fans that have had most hope dashed over the last number of years. And let's be real, they are going into this semi-final against the Dubs with as much hope as you could possibly expect to have against Dublin, because, as you said, they certainly have shown flaws. And I'm not saying Dublin are the be-all and end-all this year, because they're certainly not. And as you said, look, Jim Gavin, 2017, 2016 kind of teams were probably better than this current Dub setup in terms of the strength and depth. But no, the Mayo fans' hope will be at an all-time high for an All-Ireland semi-final against Dublin, and I cannot wait for that game.
It is going to be the mother of all battles for tickets for that game. Let's not forget that it was quite a battle to get a ticket for a full 82,000 stadium in 2019 when they last played in an All-Ireland semi-final. So what is it? Is it 30,000? Is it for the semi-final? That is just going to be one hell of a battle for tickets for that one. Next up in the red is Harry Kane. Shane, why have you put Harry Kane in the red?
Well, Owen, we saw that the headlines, and the headlines are in the newspapers this morning as well, across the weekend as well. Harry Kane missing pre-season training for Tottenham yesterday. Tottenham understood to be, quote, disappointed, Owen. Kane telling Spurs in May, of course, he wanted to leave this summer. Manchester City making that £100 million bid for him in June. Now, Kane was due to return to Hotspur Way yesterday, as I said, following the short holiday. He's had a bit of time off since the Euros ended. And when there's speculation around your future and you don't turn up to pre-season training on the first day.
Oh, we have lost Shane. Are we going to get Shane back? Is he going to magically reappear? He's frozen. The Wi-Fi in Monaghan lets us down once again here on OTB AM. It is 7:51 on this Monday morning. I'm going to take you around some of the back pages this morning. Loads of things going on. It's hard to kind of nail down what is the lead this morning. The main photo on the back of the Irish Independent is Sean Emanuel of Meath celebrating their victory over Dublin in their minor football championship final, in the Leinster final in minors. The main story though, Kane faces fine for no show, and this is what Shane has been talking about. He has taken drastic action in his attempt to force through a move to Manchester City by refusing to report to training at the start of pre-season with Tottenham, and he is now risking a heavy fine. How heavy a fine for a player that earns €234,000 a week? That will actually make a difference, I'm not so sure, but he feels he's got a gentleman's agreement with Daniel Levy. He acted like a gentleman last summer, he feels, in terms of actually staying there, whereas now the gloves are off and it's got personal at this point. Harry Kane wants to leave Tottenham by any means necessary, Shane.
Like, the Kane stuff is ridiculous. I think there was a quote from Rio Ferdinand on Twitter that summed it up quite nicely, Owen. Let Paul Pogba not turn up for Man United training and see how the English media and fans go mad. Helicopters and police forces will be out searching his location immediately. That sums it up. Like, Harry Kane gets off scot-free from the English press, Owen. He's the darling of the English media. Like, it's ridiculous. It's a joke, again. Like, it's as big a joke as the Leinster Senior Football Championship. The treatment Harry Kane gets. He's the pet. He's the pet in the corner of the teacher's classroom who's a bold boy, but he gets away with it. Like, this is a farce. You have to show up for pre-season training. Like, regardless of gentlemen's agreements, like you mentioned with Daniel Levy, you signed a 6-year contract. So, and what is it, 3 years left on it? Like, don't force your way out of a club like this. This is a club that clearly he wants out of because he wants to win trophies. And I understand that. I understand why he would want to sign for Manchester City or Chelsea or Manchester United or Real Madrid. But do it in the proper way and don't let down the fans like this, because it's ridiculous.
Well, what does he have to gain by doing this, Shane? It is always my question when somebody doesn't show up for pre-season training, because so many players, like before the transfer window moved its deadline to before the season, so many players would like play a couple of games for their club at the start of the season and then move to a rival club after playing a couple of games. Like that's just the reality of football. I mean, you show up, you do your job, and you sign for somebody else, and that's fine. Like, they play Manchester City on the opening day of the season. I don't think anybody would bat an eyelid in the old days if he lined out against Manchester City on the opening day of the season and then joined that club a couple of days later. We get it. That's how it works. You can show up to training and still force your way out of the club. I mean, you can still be a pro and also be aggressive off the field trying to get your move. Is it just kind of like, I don't want to break up with somebody I don't want to break up with somebody in person, I want to do it via text? Is that the sort of way he's trying to get out of things here? Is it just awkwardness? He doesn't want to meet Nuno, he doesn't want to meet his teammates because he wants to hide his face from them because he knows he's a little bit too good for them. Is that what he's trying to do here?
It's cowardice. It's cowardice. Show up for training, show your face. Okay, you might want to force your way out of the club, but do it in a respectful manner, Harry. Come on. I mean, I understand that Daniel Levy could be a tough man to deal with, and like we saw on the Spurs like behind closed doors documentary, like even his discussions with Christian Eriksen in that show, like you can see that he takes a firm stand, Daniel Levy, and sometimes players have to force their way out of the club. I get that. Like if you're contracted, you want to force your way out. Not showing up for training and being in what appears to be breach of contract is not the way to go about it, and it's certainly not the way to do it. For the fans. I think yesterday was only supposed to be like a quick COVID test and a quick catch up ahead of the season. There was no real training as such, but you still show up. And there's no doubt Harry knew to show up. He's in WhatsApp groups and whatever else with the rest of the team. He sees when he needs to show up. And he just didn't. So it'll be interesting to see. This week's going to tell all, I think.
And is there not a case to be made here as well that he's still at the mercy of Daniel Levy? Yes, there may have been a gentleman's agreement, but for him to move, Daniel Levy is going to have to give the green light for a certain bid to come in from Manchester City. If Daniel Levy is the vindictive type, and I'm not sure if he is or not, but if he's the vindictive type, is he not thinking to himself, screw you, Man City, I'm not accepting anything under a certain amount, and that amount has gone up and up and up because the player's not showing up for training. He can lock him in if he really wants to. Like, I'm not sure. I just don't understand the tactics sometimes to not showing up for training. I'm just not sure how that forces through a move. I think you show up for training, you stay classy right till the end, and then surely Daniel Levy gets guilted into being like, all right, away you go, Harry. You've done your bit here. We accept that. So I'm not sure. Like the other thing that kind of came to mind as well is, would Tottenham be in a better position now if Jose was still manager? Like, I'm not saying he'd be able to persuade Harry Kane, but I'm pretty sure Nuno has no chance of persuading Harry Kane. Like, I know we saw a glimpse into their relationship in the Amazon documentary, but Jose's whole thing was, I'm going to make you explode. Like, Jose may not be the best manager in the world anymore. He's far from it, and he probably deserved to probably lose his job at Tottenham Hotspur given the squad they had. But at the same time, is he good enough to stroke the ego of Harry Kane enough where he might have considered staying on, or at least maybe showing up for training?
Yeah, you need a big name manager there, in order for him to stay at Tottenham. Nuno Espirito Santo was a fantastic football manager, but the fact is, he's not the big name draw that maybe might have whispered in the ear of Harry Kane and persuaded him to stay. And then you've Daniel Levy building his foot soldiers around him, making his position at the club even stronger. Like he hired the Fabio Paratici, the former Juventus football officer, to this managing director of football role, and he's just building people around him that makes his position at Spurs even stronger. And look, he spoke a couple of months ago, or back in June, about his empathising with Kane's position on wanting silverware, but he hinted back then that a deal to sell Harry Kane could be quite difficult to do. Harry Kane, listening to that back in June and looking back at the headlines, is thinking to himself, this guy's not going to let me away easily here. I'm going to have to do something to garner headlines and to make life impossibly difficult for Daniel Levy. And look, not showing up for training is one way to go about that.
How's this going to play out, do you think?
Kane's going. There's no doubt about it. If a footballer wants to leave, yeah, okay, someone's going to have to show up with the money. It's 120 million, I think they want. Like, he's worth that. He's worth 120 million pounds in today's market. Jack Grealish, we saw the figures being bandied around for him. So the fact of the matter is, Manchester City have the money. Pep Guardiola will ultimately pay it, and he will move probably to Manchester City, and it's going to happen. So whether Daniel Levy wants to put his foot down for the next week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, he can do that. But he's only postponing the inevitable, I think.
So the Leinster Football Championship and Harry Kane are in the bad this week in our Gillette performance rankings. In amber, we are going with Sebastian Vettel, Shane. I'm not going to lie, saw none of this at the weekend. It's been Olympics and GAA and Lions central for me. So explain to me and everybody else who missed this over the course of the weekend what happened.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot happening in the Formula One at the moment, and like I'm absolutely cannot wait for the coming weeks in Formula One, because we've got a 3-week break now. But then it's the Belgian Grand Prix in Spa, which I will be attending. My first time leaving the country since COVID all kicked off. So myself and a few mates are heading over to experience a Grand Prix in person, which I just cannot wait for. But yeah, Sebastian Vettel had a mixed weekend. It would have to be said why he's in amber here this morning. Like, there was an incident. So essentially, Vettel finishes second. Esteban Ocon, surprise winner of this race. Sebastian Vettel comes in second and Lewis Hamilton in third. But the way in which it happened saw Sebastian Vettel pulled of that second position. So essentially in this Hungarian Grand Prix, his car was thrown out of the results late on Sunday night, Vettel, after the FIA's technical delegate was unable to take a sufficient fuel sample after the race. So you have to essentially have 1 litre of fuel taken out of your car, essentially a sample pumped out of the car after each race. It's just a formality, really. They just test the fuel, make sure there's nothing, no Monaghan green diesel or dodgy diesel in it.
No EPO in the diesel.
No EPO, essentially, no performance-enhancing diesel. And what happened was only 0.3 litres could be taken out of Vettel's car and not the mandated 1 litre. So Aston Martin, which is Vettel's team, have lodged their intent to appeal this decision. They had until Thursday to do it. They believe there should have been still 1.44 litres of fuel in the car. Now, that's a very specific number, Owen. They knew in their heads how much fuel they thought was left in that car. 1.44 litres, they said. They said it should have been no problem to take 1 litre out, but only 0.3 litres could be taken out. So at the publication of the result then on Sunday, initially it caused a bit of confusion because Vettel was still being shown in second place in the classification. There was a note attached saying the result was provisional, subject to the outcome of Aston Martin's appeal. But then a corrected version came out of the results yesterday, and Vettel was duly listed as DSQ, disqualified. So that moved Hamilton up to second, Ferrari's Carlos Sainz up to the podium into third. And this is all, of course, pending this appeal and not being successful. So every driver behind moved up a place. They took Max Verstappen up to 9th from 10th as well, so increased a point for him. So just a disappointing one for Sebastian Vettel. He had also made headlines before the race as well, Owen. So he wore a T-shirt, Same Love rainbow T-shirt in support of the LGBTQ plus community before the race. So of course we all know the political situation in Hungary and the thoughts on gay marriage over there. And Sebastian Vettel wanted to make this stand. He wore this Same Love rainbow T-shirt during the Hungarian national anthem. And that is the crucial part here, because under FIA rules, drivers are permitted to carry a message that conveys the sport's We Race as One initiative during the pre-race ceremony. But that clothing must be removed for the national anthem. Now, Vettel was called to the stewards. He wore his T-shirt for the duration of the Hungarian national anthem. Explained to them he forgot to remove the T-shirt because of the rain. So it started to rain, and he says he forgot to remove his T-shirt. Now, other drivers also did not take theirs off either. Valtteri Bottas, Carlos Sainz, Lance Stroll, all doing the same. And as a result of leaving the T-shirt on, Sebastian Vettel has been reprimanded by the FIA. And then Lewis Hamilton, who of course has done a lot for equality and for rights and for standing up for initiatives and issues he believes in, tweeted or put up on Instagram, super proud of this guy. There is no rule that says what colour shirt you can wear, and supporting the LGBTQ plus community is not reprimandable. This is BS. Well done, Seb. I'll join you next time with the same shirt. And he updated the post to say, love to see this. Love always wins. So Sebastian Vettel doing good things and standing up to the Hungarian madness. But yeah, on the track, having a bit of an off day. Unfortunately for him, having his second place taken off him.
Right, so that's Sebastian Vettel. Mixed fortunes for him over the course of the last little while, and so he's in amber. We move on to green then in this morning's performance rankings. Let's quickly touch on hurling here, Shane. I think we all, well, maybe just me, we gave hurling a pretty bad rap during the National League, and I think we have to apologise to the hurling community this morning for such a bad rap, complaining about scores being landed from distance. I mean, this was just a first world problem, a first world hurling problem, because what we're seeing at the moment is, I don't know, the riches at the very top tier just allow us to witness some extraordinary clashes. This weekend's semi-finals are teed up beautifully. I always said at the modern hurling semi-final weekend, when both games have been on the same weekend, is probably the best weekend in Irish sport. They're probably both going to be absolute crackers. Obviously, Dublin Cork maybe didn't have the exact level of tension that Waterford Tipperary had, but it didn't really matter because Waterford Tipperary was possibly the game of the year. But it's got to beat off some pretty strong contests to be the game of the year at this point. You just kind of go into all these games not really knowing the outcome. Now, I know Limerick may skew that a little bit, but when it comes to these teams, anybody in the top 8 who are playing each other, with the exception of Limerick, you really kind of don't know how things are going to go in those games. And what has been served up, despite the fact that it is a condensed championship, is just another cracker of a hurling summer, despite the fact that we were all giving out about hurling at the start of the year.
Well, this is the thing. You said it yourself, like not knowing the outcome. That's why the Leinster Football Championship is in the red. And that's why hurling is in the green, because you do not know the outcome heading into these matches. And I was sitting in the pub in Dublin ahead of the Monaghan Tyrone match on Saturday, watching this Waterford Tip game, and there was a fella from Tip beside me and his young son in the Tip from Waterford, in the Waterford jersey, and they were just pacing back and forth, couldn't watch. This is the beauty of it, and the emotion from them at full time was just beautiful to see. Like, what a match. And of that 428, like 428, by the way, is just an outrageous scoreline, even in hurling, but 325 from play, and 13 different scorers for Waterford. Like, what a game of hurling. And really, really good advertisement for the game. And we seem to say that a lot about hurling because we get a lot of cracking matches. But the fact that even at half time, it was only, I think, a point in it in Waterford's favour. And even though Waterford were quite noticeably the better team and certainly started off the better, but just really, really exciting. And the thing for Waterford as well, 4 weeks in a row they're going to have to be playing at that intensity. Like, that's the difficult thing for them heading into this weekend. Like, the manager speaking afterwards about the boys being well conditioned, saying it's about recovery and sleep and that sort of thing this week. And look, they have the nutritionists and they have the sports psychologists and everyone to kind of prime them for it. But going out in Croke Park in an All-Ireland semi-final after the few weeks in advance of that they've had, I mean, and the breathless tempo that they play with as well, Owen, in that, especially in that game at the weekend, that's not easy. So heading into this game, difficult one for them, but yeah, a huge match ahead.
And the way Limerick kicked on in the second half against Tip would suggest to me that we're going to get this incredible opening half where Waterford may go hammer and tongs and might actually look like they're going to do something special, and then Limerick possibly pull away in the second half. Like, it's going to be really interesting, I think. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm the only person who's thinking this, but I kind of want to see Limerick win, and I want to see Kilkenny win, and I want to see that as the All-Ireland final. I want a rematch for the 2019 All-Ireland semi-final, the only time when Limerick have really looked mortal over the course of a full 70-80 minutes. So that is the final I want to see, and I hope we get it. Just to mention then, our final person in the green who we're going to get into properly now over the next 15 or 20 minutes, it is, of course, Kellie Harrington. She is officially an Olympic medalist. She was delighted this morning, but there is a reservation there as well, because she knows that she is good enough to go another 2 steps. She knows she's good enough to win gold. She knows she's definitely good enough to get at least silver over the next little while. She won earlier on against Kellie, her opponent, who didn't really cause her too many troubles, with the exception of her biology, really, that she was taller, she had a longer reach, and she tried to keep Harrington at her distance, and when Harrington did manage to get inside that reach, she was devastating. And Kellie was awkward. Kellie Harrington in her post-fight interview was imitating the sounds that Kellie was making as she was approaching her, which sounded like it was a pretty stressful thing to be looking at. She cited the Lion King twice. She said Hakuna Matata a number of times. That is her philosophy. Some people watch motivational videos to get themselves up for the Olympic Games. Kellie Harrington watches the Lion King, and it is serving her in really good stead. Again, like most of these Irish fighters, she credits her coaches for doing a really good job, and I think Zar has pretty much nailed the tactics on quite a few occasions this time, and it's been no different for Kellie Harrington. It was obviously a disappointing Sunday when it came to the boxers, waking up to the news that Aidan Walsh was not going to be fighting, and Kurt Walker going out in dramatic enough fashion as well. But Kellie Harrington has got the good times going again. There is one last good news story, hopefully, for Ireland in this Olympic Games, and Kellie Harrington might well be it. So Thursday morning against Seesondy of Thailand is going to be something that I'm sure everybody will be getting up to watch, because I think it's at like 6 o'clock in the morning, so it's worked out brilliantly for Ireland that it's on that late. But Kellie Harrington is where we finish. We are going to get Ronan Mullen's take on that in just a moment, but that is this week's Gillette Performance Rankings.
OTB AM's Performance Rankings with Gillette.